Hi everyone, this is Alison. We're back doing our beanie. Now I've taken this up all the way. There's my 16 centimeter mark just here where I've started to decrease. So there it is there. Alright, so I've gone from the top of that stitch there right down, and there's my 16 centimeters. Now normally the other day, I think I've spoken to you about it, when you do measure, make sure you measure from the top of the needle, right on the top, right down to the bottom, okay, and make sure that you get that edge there. Alright, so it is from the top of your needle all the way down to the edge of your casting on. Now I've carried on up because I want to do the last part and then get stuck into showing you how to sew up the side seam. So just to go back over where I came from last, we are going to do our knit two together. So on the pattern it is actually saying knit 5 then knit 2 together, and you're going to do that all the way across until the last 2 stitches. So I've only put a few on just so you get the idea. So we're going to knit our 5, should have had that undone, got a bit crossed up then. That's 3, 4, 5. Now to knit 2 together, we don't knit them separate, we put them both together, and we still got to go through the front of that stitch. So just like what we did before when you're doing normal knitting, but you're going to pick up both of those 2 stitches, then take them both off. Now you will get a little bit of a loose stitch there. Don't panic, it comes in when you do the second row. Okay, so knit 5 again, and then we're going to knit 2 together. So if you're having a little bit of trouble getting into that second stitch, just come in and just release it a little bit, not too much, and then you'll be able to get it to slide in quite nicely between those 2 stitches. All right, so we have that one, then that one, and we're going to go through the 2 stitches and knit it, then come back through, and there's our knit 2 together. So if you have a good look, there's one and there's the second stitch. All right, one there and one there. And then I'm just going to do it very quickly. We've knitted to the end. All right, so now we're going to turn and we're going to come back. Now we just got to knit all the way across to the next row. Now if you have a look, that's actually our knit 2 together, which is 1, 2, 3rd stitch in, and there it is there. So I'm just, don't normally do this, but I just wanted you to see that those are the 2 stitches that we picked up in the row before. Okay, so that's them there. And when you're coming along, as I said before, that stitch which looked loose has now been tightened up, and you can't see it. So that's the next one, and you see it doesn't look any different to the other stitches. All right, now we'll come to the end. Now when we turn and start the next row, it's asking us to knit 4. So we're decreasing, all right, that's our decreasing all the way across. So we're going to knit 4, and then we're going to knit those 2 together. All right, so that looks a little bit tight, so we're just going to pull it just ever so gentle. Then we're going to go in through those 2 stitches, back through and off. Then we're going to knit 4 again, and then we're going to knit those 2 together, going through. You might find it a little bit firm, a little bit difficult, but that's okay. That's what it should be like sometimes, not all the time. And then I'm going to knit all the way back, and then you'll be able to see what it looks like, the decreasing. All right, and then I'll take you back to the original beanie. So what we're actually doing is this part here. All right, so that's what we're doing at the moment in this video. All right, so when we turn it over, just put it down there on the table. So that's what we're doing. There's the first one, decrease that we did, and there's the second one there. All right, you'll see a little bit of a dip, but that's what happens when you start decreasing like that. So now just a little thing too, when I get back to this other one, the main one. All right, so that's what happens. See how that dips? So that's what you were seeing in this one here. That was after 2 rows of decreasing. Okay, see how it dips? All right, and that's exactly what this has been doing at the moment. Once we've finished the whole lot and we've joined it together at the top, it sits around like that, so you don't get all the dips. Now, just a little thing I want to show you. On the edges, see how nice and even they are all the way. I did one here which I left not really on purpose, but I just wanted to show you, if you're very loose with your stitches when you're turning, that's what will happen. It will become loose. Now I'm just going to put this in here just to show you, because those are the stitches that we're going to go into to sew up the edge. Now if you have a look at these ones, they're nice and tight, all right? But this one here is a loose one. So when we are knitting, it's really important that you tighten up your first 2 stitches when you're knitting. So not so much that one, but it's this one. So just put a bit more pressure on that stitch, and then you'll get a nice edge like that all the way through. All right, now I'm just going to backtrack on this one because I've got to the stage on here for the last row. All right, so this last row, which is row 11, it's asking you to knit 2 together all the way across. So remembering how we knitted 2 together, and I'm going to do this all the way across. So there's your second stitch, and come on an angle. You might find it easier, rather than trying to pull up that stitch, just bring it back and go in on the angle. It's whatever feels comfortable for you when you're doing it. And oh, I can hear some rain coming. I hope you can still hear me okay. If it gets too loud, I will stop and I will come back later and finish off the video. But at the moment, we're all good. So there's the last one, right into there. All right, so there you go. There's your last one. Now, what I do is I like to have a nice long tail. So that's our right round. We've finished doing all the decreases. You come back to having 9 stitches. All right, so 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. Now, what I'm going to do here is cut a little bit of a tail, about that long, if you can see where I've gone. That's it. And just cut it. Now, just a little trick. Let me find my needle to take it through. What I do is I fold right on the edge over the top of the needle, which is on, not the flat, on the side. So right on that edge, fold it, hold it nice and tight between your fingers, and then you're going to pull out the needle, holding it still tight there. And what I want you to do is push down on the needle. And there you go. You've got your thread through your needle there. So now what I'm going to do is take one at a time. Just going to thread the needle through and take it off. If you feel comfortable, you can take it nearer to the stitches nearer to the end of your needle and just slide it through a couple at a time. As long as you're picking them up and they're still, the stitches are still staying in the same order as they were on your needle. So just bringing it closer, then threading it through the actual stitch until you've got them all off. There we go. Now we're nearly finished. So remembering the ones with the bobbles is the wrong side. Right? This is the right side, the one that's flat. So what we're going to do here is I like to make sure it's nice and firm. So I'll bring this around very gently, but I want to thread back through all those stitches. So I'm doing a bit back to front so you can see. I hope you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to go through each one of those stitches, and what's happening is it's going to join it back up in the round. So just picking up very carefully. Try not go through the actual wool. So I'll bring it back this way now just to make sure. So that's, I'm threading back through each one of those stitches. So make sure that you're picking up the 9. And 2 on the end. Oh, that came out. So there you go. You've got 2 strands going through there. So now what you do is you very gently, now it's really important that you just very gently pull, all right? Just keep it until it's nice and firm and round like that. That's what it should look like, all right? Those are your stitches there. So we've pulled it nice and firm, all right? Nice and firm like that. Now what I do for this at this stage, I will thread it back up again. Now if you've got a needle that's too pointy on the edge, when you touch it, it's quite sharp. Try and get one that's not, that's more rounded, that's not going to hurt. Okay, that's the better needle to start working with your wool. If you haven't got one, turn your needle around so you've got the bigger part where you've thread through, and use that to go through, all right, for where we're going to do our stitches. So coming back to here, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn it inside out, and I'm just going to go through. That's your last stitch, all right? That there on the edge is your last stitch. I'm going to go through, so there's that one, and then I'm going to pick up that one. So we're going to go through that, which is just going to help secure those together, all right? And then I'm just going to pick up those are your last stitches. I'm just going to pick up a couple. At this stage, it doesn't matter whether you go through the fibres of your wool and just come back around. And then there's your last stitch. I want you to go into that knot, which is your first stitch on your needle. All right, so there's part of it that way, and then there's a part that goes that way. So we're just going to go down into that stitch and come through. Now, if you know me, I'm a bit of a fanatic about sewing up, making sure that it's going to stay together. Now, what I'm going to show you here, this might be just a little bit long, so I'm going to just cut it a little bit shorter for what I want to do. I'm going to split the yarn just like that. Now, I do this mainly on thicker wool, because if you sew up with the thicker yarn, it's going to make this very bulky along the edge. It'll still hold, so don't panic about that. But just, I'm going to do one connecting up here, so I'm going to turn it back to the right side again. All right, I'm back on the right side. Now, to pick up, we're just going to see that stitch there. That's not the first one. There's our first one right on the edge there. I'm not liking how there's a bit of a gap, because that's the row. That stitch there should really be up here. So what I'm going to do, sometimes you've got to look at your knitting and just see where it is. So see how I've gone through, and then I'm just going to very carefully bring it up, and that's the stitch on this side that I want to come. Remember how we came in on that stitch? So we're just going to come back through there and join that up. All right, so because you've got the finer yarn, you can just take it back through, and I've come back up through the middle of where we've joined all those 9 stitches together, and that's brought that in and nice and firm. Now I'm just going to let that go for now, and the one inside, we will come back to that shortly. Now here we go, we're going to start. Now whenever I sew up, especially with garter and with stocking stitch, I like to sew up on the right side of the fabrics together. All right, right side to right side. So now I'm going to thread this. Now I don't normally use a big thick needle like this, but for today, because I'm trying to show you where to go, normally I do it with a finer needle, again with the no point on the end, because when you're sewing up, it's really important that you don't go through through the fabric, okay, through the yarn, the fibers. You've got to go through the whole stitch. So if you go in, you can actually pull it, and you'll be able to see and move it about, and you'll be able to see where you are. Now on this part, which is right on the edge, see how your stitches come through and back to there. When I pull on this, how I've done the casting on, I'm now going to go in through that first stitch right on the edge, okay? Not this part, that part, which is right on the edge. That's your very first stitch. Now I'm going to very gently bring it together. Then I'm going to come back just under that stitch that we went through, and I'm going to come back up through there. All right, so we're going to get it sitting just do this piece just nice and gentle, because the rest of it isn't tight, okay? So just nice and gentle, so you're getting it looking like that. So now, if you have a look at that, see how that one comes down into there? So this one I'm going to take down into there. Whoop, I've lost it. There, right down into the middle there. So there's that one coming out, and there's that starting there. So I'm going to go down into that, and that's going to bring that together. All right. So now we're just going to very gently pull that in and see how it's all sitting. Very similar to that. So now we're going to bring our yarn back through to the other side. So now on this side we're going to pick up that stitch that's going right across there, just on the edge. So we're going to come up through that stitch like that, and then on this stitch we're going to come up. So there's the first one, and we're going to go into that one and pick up that first bar on the left hand side, and very gently pull that through, and I'll be saying gentle all the way through, okay, and that brings that together. So now we do that again. There's the bar going across there. We're going to go into that one, and then on this side we're going to come up through there. So there's that one going across that way. We're going to come up into there, and see how I just very gently just bring it all forward. Okay, now if you have a look at that, I've done it how we've started off with our knitting. So we've got, when you look at it, you've got a net, a purl, a net, and then a purl, and a net, and a purl. So we've got it sitting just like all the rest. Now, it's a bit different sewing up garter stitch. To get a nice stitching going, we've got what I call a frown, and then I've got a smile right next to it. Then it goes into a frown, and then a smile. So if I start on the right hand side, picking up the frown, because there's your smile. All right, so I'm going to pick up the frown, and then on this side, right, there's my frown, there's my smile. So what I'm going to do is pick up, now that one goes in there, so there we are. So just so you can see it a bit easier. So there's your frown, which I've picked up on the right hand side. So this side I'm going to pick up the smile. So whatever you start doing, I'll turn it back this way so you can see. So there's my smile, there's my frown. So I'm going to pick up the frown, and that's the one right on the edge on the right hand side. This one is just in one. So there's your frown, there's your smile. So what we're trying to achieve is it to look exactly the same as what this is. So now we're going to pick up the frown on the right hand side and the smile on the left. So the frown on the right and the smile on the left. And when you're holding and you go to pull, hold your hands just very gently over the top of your knitting, and just very gently, now don't pull up, pull that way down flat, and until you can feel it pull from down here. So now, if you look at that, okay, there's your frown, smile, frown. Okay, smile, frown. There's your smile, and when that one comes down, because that's the one up there which is connected, that one there will be your frown. Rightio. So, and we will just continue. So there's your smile, frown, all right, and continuing up. So there's your frown, there's your smile, there's your frown. And that's exactly what we've got here. Rightio, so we will continue doing that all the way up to the top there. Now, I will try, because the rain's starting to get down a little bit now, and give me time to do that. I will then finish off in the next tutorial. All right? Have fun doing it, but just take your time, and I'll see you shortly.